everybody. While the artillery recovers a little bit from their demonstration, I'll be talking to you a little bit about our skirmish or battle demonstration that we're going to have in a minute. We're the Northwest Territorial Alliance. We reenact or do living history of the period of the American Revolution, which is 1775 to 1783, when the United States was fighting for its independence from Great Britain. So all the uniforms and clothing that you see is something that existed here in the American colonies between 1775 and 1783. And we know there was no Battle of Highland, Indiana during the Revolution, so we're not going to try and recreate that. And we don't really have the right terrain or the right troops to recreate any battle during that war. So given the fact that we have a fairly limited space here, what we're going to do is we're going to fight a fake battle, but what we're hoping to show you is the tactics that were used during the American Revolution. And like any war, the tactics are, I'm sorry I'm not facing you, but I never know what they're going to do out there when they're going to start the battle, so I have to keep an eye on them. And like any war, the tactics are determined by the weapons. And other than the artillery, which you've just learned about, there are two weapons that the infantry would be carrying out on the field. One is the rifle, and we're familiar with rifles. Back then, they were just a hunting weapon. They were not routinely used by the military. A rifle has rifling, a kind of a spired grooving in the barrel that puts a spin on the ball and makes it fly farther and straighter. However, when you ram your charge down there, because these are all muzzle loaders, you're ramming kind of against the direction of the rifling, and you have to load it very carefully and tightly so that the ball is right square in the middle of the barrel down at the bottom. And so it takes you a minute to load a rifle in the 18th century. The other weapon is a musket. It's a smoothbore weapon, uses an undersized ball so it can be loaded and fired quickly. You don't need to ram nearly as hard. And you can load and fire a musket 4 times a minute. So while the rifleman can load and fire once, the musket man can load and fire 4 times. Also, his musket is made to have a bayonet at the end of it, so he's got a long, sharp, kind of triangular knife as an extension. Looks like we're going to start having some action out here. So the piece was out here for the recent practice, so the artillery was right there, and it's come out to respond. Now you're the drummer beating, that's the long roll. And the drummers and the fifers are the signal corps of the armies during the Revolution. Every soldier knows that. That means get your weapon, get out, and get ready to fight. And you can see that each guy is running out in front of his own camp, and that camp is laid so it's in the order of battle that the commander wants if the camp is attacked. So everybody just grabs their weapon and stands out in front of their own unit's tents, and then they're pretty much ready to go. And you'll see the red coats, those are the British regulars on the far side of the field, and with them you see some soldiers in green coats. We also have some in green over here. You know from the artillery demonstration that those are really the Continental Marines, but we're pretending they're British loyalists this afternoon to kind of even up the numbers for our battle. They are North American colonists who fought against independence. So in a lot of ways, our American Revolution was a civil war. Right now we have those Americans in green coats who are on the British side. Those are Americans, they live in our colonies. They're fighting against other Americans who are over here on the side, on the rebellious side. So I try to not call one side exclusively American and say they're congressional forces because the Continental Congress is the U.S. government. Now you'll see we have one brigade of Continentals out on the field now the 2nd Brigade coming out. You'll see that everybody out there is fighting in a line. You know, there are many myths in our history books that say all the Continentals used rifles and hid behind rocks and trees and shot at the British, and that's why they won, because rifles are real accurate. And while that is true that they are more accurate, most of the guys in this war and most of the guys that you see here are armed with the musket, the smoothbore weapon. Because the ball's undersized, it can kind of bounce back and forth in the barrel. And so it's not as accurate, but you can fire more often if you have the bayonet. It looks like enough of the gun crew is out of action now. They don't have enough crew to fire the cannon. I don't see the ammunition box is not even out here. That somehow it got left back in camp, it looks like. So luckily they did come out with their muskets. They're cross-trained, the artillerymen, as are the dragoons, which are closest to us marching out there now. They're cross-trained so that they can fight as infantry or cavalry. Again, the artillery is cross-trained to fight as infantry or as artillery. Their big aim right now is to prevent the cannon being taken. Because the aim of those guys in the green, they want to disable that cannon. And I'd say they're pretty darn determined, wouldn't you? The Continental commander has lost his whole artillery crew, all of his dragoons, his light cavalry, over on this flank. And now we've got these loyalists right in front of us in the green, are mounting a flank attack. So they've taken the cannon out of the picture, and then they're going in from the side. You'll see those congressional troops moved over to meet the main British infantry force. And they're just now paying attention to the fact that they've got forces that are on the British side coming at them. And you'll notice we got people in green coats on both sides, here. So there were friendly fire incidents during the war where they didn't recognize who that was across the field. You can see this is not local militia out here, though, on the congressional side. They tended to be inexperienced, ill-trained, and would run. These are clearly experienced Continental soldiers, or perhaps some state line troops, but they have had training. They've seen fire before. They're not running away, but they're kind of boxed into a corner now. They have British on both sides. So they've got to be really, really, really creative, or else they got to hope some reinforcements are coming from somewhere. And I would certainly expect the British to win, because Great Britain is the largest empire in the world, and they are. And those are professional soldiers. Those are lifetime enlistments, essentially. That's their career. So I would certainly expect them to win against a bunch of volunteers who have like 3 or 6 months enlistments, and then they go home to, see us. So make sure you tell the members of the Highland Council and community events that you want us back next year if you want to see the Americans win that time. So we do have, if some of you are getting kind of warm warm sitting out on the bleacher seats. We do have a few lower steps available here on the gazebo if you need to move in the shade, or there's standing room up on the top, so feel free to move around for a minute. We're going to now go into our closing formation for the weekend, so that'll take us a couple minutes.
Military channel, that's why I watch it often, religiously, every day, all day long. History channel.
As they get ready to line up here, well, any of you, I don't know what it is, but seemingly they haven't, or equipment. Back during the war, they would have done this right in front of their own camps, so kind of like you saw the congressional forces line up over here to our left, right in front of their camp. They would be standing there and doing these inspections. To give you an idea of what it would look like with almost a whole regiment, because a whole regiment would be over 100 people. So, you know, we have little squads out of different regiments, but we don't have a whole regiment. So to give you a better idea of what it would look like, we're going to line up all our soldiers for you and declare a truce during the war to give you a little better idea. Now you'll notice that especially to our left are the forces of the Continental Congress, the U.S. government, and you'll see uniforms change a lot. They could never get the whole Army in the same uniform. So every time you see a change of uniform, it's a different regiment or unit or company or whatever of one of the military units that fought in the Revolution. And see, hear the music again playing a different tune. That's an indication that something else is supposed to happen. And what you'll see is the officers walk forward in front of their companies. Then you'll see orderly sergeants coming out in front of their squads, and they'll be turning around and then taking the roll call. Now the orderly sergeant saluting their commander. He returns the salute. And they go back to the ranks. This would be the end of the troop if that's all we were doing, the inspection and roll call. However, we extend it with another ceremony in the afternoon. And that's a trooping of the colors and a parade, or a pass and review. And now you hear the command sent for the colors. We're following the British tradition here. In England, even today, the regimental flags or colors are considered to be the most important items owned by a regiment. And they embody the honor and spirit and glory of the regiment, the men, you know, the sacrifice of the men who have served under those colors. And if you go to almost every church or cathedral in England will have regimental colors of the units that came from that neighborhood that have returned from battle, you know, hung up in the rafters of the church or along the side aisles. And so they developed some ceremonies to make sure that the men would recognize their colors and would know to honor their colors. And so they members of the Illinois Regiment. The Illinois Regiment was a Virginia State unit that actually fought out here in what was then the Western United States during the war. Then there's a red color. That's the 2nd Virginia Regiment. That's a Continental unit from Virginia, meaning Continental means they're on federal service. State unit is more like our state National Guard, where they're paid, authorized, whatever you want to call it, by the individual state. Then far to the end is another Continental flag, federal, that's carried by the Continental Marines. And that's the familiar rattlesnake symbol with the "Don't Tread on Me" slogan, indicating that the British should quit trampling on the civil rights of the Americans. British national anthem. The Star Spangled Banner did not become the United States national anthem until the 1930s. But this is Chester, hymn written by a New England composer, and then it had martial words added to it.